Hi Susan, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for asking.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what it is that you do?
Well, I'm Susan Johnson. My website is susanfrancisjohnson.com. I'm a pastel artist. I reside here in the southern suburbs. I have been painting for many years, but recently I've discovered a new medium of pastels. I've been a pastel artist for the last 3 or 4 years because there's a learning curve to, trying a new medium. And it's taken me a while to learn and perfect what I do.
Where did you come from? What medium before?
I started in oils and then went, because oils take a long time to dry, I went to acrylics, which give you instant results, but not the vividness of colors that oils or pastels. Pastels, what fascinated me about them is because they're pure pigment. There's very little binder to them, so the color that you get translates to paper or whatever surface that you're using on immediately. There's no drying time. It's just instant. It takes you back to childhood. First time you picked up a pencil or a crayon.
Did you take any lessons to start it, or did you just experiment?
Initially, I learned it in college. Experimenting with different mediums and working with various art classes and various mediums. But then I apprenticed with a local artist, Mary Kay Whitlock.
We're very familiar with her.
I'm sure everybody is familiar with Mary Kay and her outstanding, sublime landscapes. She's a great teacher, a great colorist, and she had a lot of patience, with my stubbornness about, why do I have to do it this way? You learn the basics first, and then once you learn the basics and, and develop, some technical skills, then you can find out who you are as an artist. And who I am as an artist is still ever evolving and changing because, in my world, things change. And as we all found out with COVID, the world changes.
Definitely.
So you gotta pivot with it.
Right.
And things that, draw me to, give me inspiration about art and what I like to paint is I like to be out in nature. I like to hike. I've been hiking and riding my bike since I was a little child. And I like to be out there because being in nature has a calming effect. It's tension-free, and the best artist is God himself.
This is true.
You can't do better than Mother Nature because everywhere you look, there is something interesting to find. And that's what's intrigued me, is because I may stop and look at a beautiful landscape because the sun's hitting it right, or it's just like you're out at a glacier and the view is just astounding. But then you look down and you see a squirrel, and he's trying really hard to dislodge a find, and it's like, wow, that's pretty interesting.
Is most of your work done in the studio or outdoors, from sketches, from photos, or how do you approach your work?
Okay, well, my process usually starts, out somewhere, in nature. It could be local, it could be one of our national parks. I am very passionate about painting our national parks because, Roosevelt set the parks aside for us to enjoy forever. And I feel it's my responsibility as a steward because people forget the national parks belong to all of us. We are all responsible as a country, as the United States, to maintain them. Nobody else. They have good views, they have good, places to go. Nobody else in the world, no other country has set aside public lands for just their people to enjoy. And so when I go out to the national parks, I try to remember that it's my responsibility to leave no mess, but to start. That's where my process starts, is on location. It may be only for a few minutes because I might be traveling, with family and friends, but I will stop and do a quick sketch. I will take photographs if I have time, and it hasn't too much of an effort to haul my stuff. you know, I will paint on location.
Okay, so that's a little bit of plein air, I believe
A
it's
little bit of
called?
plein air.
So
I'll
you
at least do
make
a color
sure-
study, but I will at least do a sketchbook, a really quick sketch of, you know, what drew me to that, you know, what made me stop, what made me think,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and what emotion. I will write little taglines about that, and I'll try to match the color to like the local things. So sometimes I don't always have time to do a whole painting or sketch,
Mhm.
so I will usually start there, because when I get back in the studio and I look at what I've done, and I look at my photographs, there's usually a disconnect. Because what pictures that you take pictures, you know, of don't always come out the way you want them, or the way my mind remembers them.
Right.
So, and that's what I try to capture. I try to take that Renaissance in nice spirit and put that on paper so that you, the viewer, can enjoy and see the world through my eyes.
How many national parks have you been to, roughly?
I have been to, other than the new ones, all the national parks in the United States
Mm.
and Canada.
Oh, okay.
So I've done a lot of traveling, but that's a lifetime of traveling. I started, you know, back in, you know, my high school years, you know, hiking the northern, you know, woods, you know, up the, you know, the Madeline Islands. You know, I have hiked the Appalachian Trail. I've done sections of the Pacific Coast Trail. And then I've ridden my bike, you know, in all 50 states.
Huh,
So-
interesting. That sounds kind of fun.
It's kind of fun, but you know, that's my stress relief. It's
Mhm.
a complicated world. You know, growing up, it wasn't so complicated, but now it's complicated. As an adult, it's complicated. It's stressful. COVID made it stressful. Other things in my life have made it stressful. You know, working, how to pay the bills.
Right.
You know, that's stress. So you need something to be mindful about and to do some self-care. Painting is my self-care because it takes me back to that day that I stopped and took that picture and made that painting, and I can think in my mind, okay, what was I feeling? I got my little notes, I got my little sketch, I can think about, okay, how do I portray this? You know, was it the emotion? You know, was it the calmness? I try to have calmness, and then, you know, in my paintings, because I want you to sit down and I want you to look and I want you to feel relaxed. I want that to be your special garden, you know, your secret place that you can go to on a day-to-day basis and just sit and relax. That's what art does. That gives you that space and that time to just relax and take a breath. And it'll always be there.
Of the parks that you've been in, what is your favorite one as far as your painting and your work? Is there a particular one that really stuck out in your mind that you just loved working in?
Well, Yosemite has always been, and Zion National Park. Zion, you know, is not a really, by square footage, is not really a necessarily big park,
Mm-hmm.
but the rock formations, the color formations, the Virgin River running through it, you've got, you know, all different, you got desert, you can go, go through the Narrows, you can go, rappelling into some of the slot canyons. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do there. And everywhere you turn, there's something new to see. You know, and the light changes dramatically throughout the day. When you start in the morning, 10 minutes later, the light is going to change. You know, of course it does everywhere, but, it's magical. And, and there's a spiritual sense about Zion, too. You can feel the Native American experience. You can feel, the hand of God there. And it's just a really a neat place. Okay, the Grand Canyon is an awesome, magnificent place. I have hiked from the north, and south, and I've hiked also from east to west, on the canyon. I've hiked all the way down to the Colorado River. I've also taken the mules, halfway down into the canyon and halfway back. And it's really quite the experience, because here you're on this animal and you're on some of those hairpin turns. Your body is actually over, and it's a 1,000-foot drop, into the canyon. But every time I go there, it is spectacular, and it changes every season. There's not a favorite season. I mean, because winter is just as magnificent as the spring rains and the summer. And then of course there's always a lot of people there. Sometimes they're more crowded than others, but you know, you can be standing like say at Mather Point, and 10 other artists and photographers have photographed and painted that particular place, but every painting is going to look entirely different because you can blink and you know, the atmosphere of the canyon changes that quickly. It's just a stunning place, and everybody that goes there that sees it for the first time is just in amazement. And I keep going back because, you know, I'm going to get it right eventually.
Now I see that one of your paintings is here in the show in the gallery right now.
That is Surfs Up. That was taken, well, it could be a lot of different places. It could be Lake Michigan. It could be, I have traveled extensively in the Caribbean and in the northern part of South America. I believe this was sailing into Cartagena, the waves there that day. You know, what catches my eye is the surf and, you know, the power of the ocean. You know, the power of wind and water and how they affect each other and how they change and how the light, you know, sparkles off of it. And, you know, with the way the light hits it, you know, you get, you know, every color in the rainbow showing up.
And to look at it, it looks like you caught just that second in time.
Yeah, the nice thing about drawing waves is nobody's going to say you didn't get it right.
It looks really, you could feel yourself being there.
But I want you to feel, you know, the wind and the water, you know, standing there in the surf line and being sucked out and sand washing over your feet and just that whole sunny experience and just the power of the ocean.
And this is one of your pastels, correct?
That is pastel.
Okay. And I see you brought a few other things for us to
And
see.
then, yes, I brought, this goes along part of the series, you know, of, this is sailing away from Cartagena.
Oh.
When you get down towards the equator, your sunsets are going to look entirely different than they did, you know, up in the Chicagoland area. You're going to get a lot more of the mountains and the clouds as they come across the mountains. You're going to get colors and the way the color swirls through the sky and reflects on the water. And, you know, it was just magnificent. You know, I have several, you know, paintings of it, you know, to get it to look the way
You certainly
I want.
captured it well. The colors are just amazing.
And this is an award-winning painting.
Wonderful. Where did you put this into?
It won the Jurors Award, the Judges Award over at Frankfurt Art Association.
Oh, cool.
And other things that I started out as a wildlife artist.
Okay.
And you know, when I was doing oils and acrylics, I started out as a wildlife artist and had, you know, been very successful, you know, having people purchase, you know, portraits of foxes and bears and squirrels and skunks and raccoons and, you know, I love painting animals. I mean, because when you sit there and you study them, they're not like a bear in the zoo. They have personalities. Just like people, they are unique, they're different, they're fun to watch, but you have to be cautious. You have to be respectful of them if you want them to be respectful of you. Now,
Right.
I prefer the bears don't eat me, but all of my paintings have a story behind them. This I spent last summer at a working horse ranch up in Colorado above Grand Junction. And this is one of the horses that was in the paddock and out in the pastures. And what caught me about this was the fact that at the same time every day, he was the leader of the herd.
Ah.
At a certain time of the day when the sun would just, you know, tip, you know, over the tree line, he would look up, all the horses would look up, they would, you know, whinny, and then he would head for the barn and everybody would follow. They did this every single day. It was like they were saying, thank you, son, you know, for having a, you know, winter day, but now it's time to be safe and head back for the barn. And this is what this
Interesting.
horse did. And what I like about this painting is how the light and the dust and the whole body language of the horse conveys that, okay, it's time to go to bed, go have, feed, go get brushed, or whatever horses do. I don't work with horses, so I'm not quite sure. But, and I loved all the colors of the way the light and the sun, hit
Oh, that's
everything.
nice.
And then my other passion,
And what medium was that again?
that is pastels. These are
That's
all
pastel, okay.
My other fascination is watching people work.
Ah,
I like to watch people. I'm a people watcher. I like to sit in a cafe or on a park bench and watch what people do when they think nobody's watching. Because we all have our public face, we all have our face that we use with our friends and everything. But we're entirely different than when we think nobody's watching.
mm-hmm.
And this was in Havana. I had, the good fortune of being able to go to Havana, Cuba, after it opened to American tourists. And this was a mojito bar.
Oh,
Hemingway has been said to drink there on numerous occasions, and I believe wrote a book there. And the place was jam-packed with people.
Uh-huh.
And as an artist, I have license to add or subtract, what in there. So what I did was I just wanted to convey the essence of the bar, and you can see how hard, the bartenders are working. And it's unusual to see, a woman bartender.
okay.
Most of them are male, and since Castro has passed away, his successor has opened Cuba up to, the local people being able to run their own businesses and to be able to keep, because it is a communist country. So everything goes to the greater good of everybody. So there's really no incentive for anybody to do a good job, because
Right.
everybody owns everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is, it's different. And so this is one of the bars that caters to a lot of tourists that come through to, Havana, mostly Canadians and Germans and Swedes. And they could pour 1,000 drinks in seconds. And I sat there just fascinated watching them, pour all these drinks with, proficiency and, and then there's all the graffiti on the walls, because a lot of people had signed or left dollar bills from whatever country, or business cards from wherever country they had come from, to
Okay.
say that they had been there.
Hmm.
And I kind of left that out because it really didn't add. But I did leave the cigars, because Cuba's known for the cigars, and some of the graffiti
Mm-hmm.
that was there. And and then it's the colors of the light too.
Very nice.
And this was actually Christmas Eve, around midnight.
Huh.
Where else are you gonna go on Christmas Eve,
So they probably were pouring thousands of drinks at that
They were
time.
pouring 1,000 drinks, and the line to get in, was really, really long. And Cuba, you can drink on the streets, which you can't really do in other places, but it was a good time. And then we went to midnight mass.
Oh,
Because
okay.
right down the street on the other side of the square was, a Catholic church.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it's a communist country, Catholicism, still there, and they do have on certain occasions they do have mass. So even though I'm not Catholic, we went to mass because the church was beautiful and the Stations of the Cross were outstanding. And it was nice to hear familiar hymns sung in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And I could sing them in English because I knew the words, and people would look at me like, "Okay, your choice." But everybody was friendly, everybody was hospitable, and they were just so delighted that we were there and we were taking care. So it was that commonality of humanity, of just coming together and just being part of that moment.
Interesting.
And I have a whole series from Cuba.
So if we were to ask you, what is the one thing that you haven't done that you want to do? Is there anything that you haven't done yet that you have in the back of your mind about painting, or a subject matter, or that you're thinking of going into?
Well, right now, I would consider my art more on the realism side, you know,
Mhm.
impressionist. I've been working doing more impressionistic, more abstract things. So I have some, you know, things I've done in, you know, fluid acrylics, and I want to start adding some texture to that.
I see.
I have another painting, part of this series over at Frankfurt Art Association, Gallery C, that is a similar painting, but that's done in acrylics, and it has texture to the wave. So it gives it that more of a three-dimensional. And I think for a while my art might do more three-dimensional, but still stay in, you know, the realistic, more contemporary, you know, vision.
When you look at the oil versus the acrylic versus the pastel, of course, they've all got their pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages. But given ample time with nothing to do and doing whatever you wanted, what one do you enjoy the best?
I love painting in pastels because that's immediate gratification. And I can paint a painting, you know, in a few minutes, depending on how much detail is required, but I can,
Right.
you know, I can paint that in, you know, a few minutes and, you know, get the essence of that painting down right away. And then I might come back later and add some detail to it. The other thing I like about is oils, because it's the same pigment that pastels. Because I'm a colorist. I love color. You know, I really struggled, you know, doing a monochrome painting because it's one color. It's, you know, all the values of that color from 1 to 10, but it's just one color. To me, that was frustrating because it limited to me one color. Now, I'm the kind of child that never colored in the line. If you gave me a crayon box with 100 colors in it, I would use every single color. I could not pick out one color and just play with one color. No, I had to have all the colors. You know, and if my mother was alive, she'd attest to that. And so I just love color. And even if you look at one color, you're going to see a lot of different colors in the shadow, in the sunlight, and then, you know, where the light changes between bright and, you know, and not being bright. You know, there's color everywhere.
And we'll save the hardest question for now last. Is there one place in the whole world, not just limited to the United States, but in the whole world, if I told you, okay, here's enough money, here's time, you go knock your socks off, it's the place you want to go the most. Do you have any idea where that might be?
Oh, that would be really hard to narrow that down.
Okay, so give me your top three.
My top three would probably be Alaska, anywhere in the state.
Okay. And generalities, that's fine too, is area.
And then I'm gonna go down underneath the ocean. I like to dive.
Oh, okay.
Although age is catching up with me and is now regulated to be just snorkeling only. But there's a whole unexplored world of color and fish and coral. And unfortunately, we are not being good stewards of that world. And calling attention to it, you know, through, you know, recycling and other things isn't, you know, and there are a lot of really good people out there that are, you know, replanting reefs and trying to rectify the damage that's been done and to restore what we're losing. But I think art makes a bigger impression in a different way because it calls attention to, you can walk past the painting and you can say, oh, I really like that. Well, why do you really like it? Well, look at those fish. There's Dory. But then Dory comes from a real place. But you wouldn't know Dory because Dory is part of cinematography and film, but that's an art form. Somebody had to paint that. Somebody had to draw Dory. Somebody had to think about, you know, putting that all together. And that's what I want my art to say. I want my art to say, hey, I want you to think about some of this stuff, not just enjoy it, but I want you to think about, you know, those things, because we might not have them.
Okay, so there's you one other place, be it someplace, even if it were someplace that's hard to get to. If somebody said we could just put you in that spot anywhere in the whole world, a place, a general, anything.
Italy.
Italy?
Italy.
And what does attracts you from there? What do you think
Food.
you'd be doing? The food? Okay.
Food, people, wine. And you know, Italians have a wonderful way of expressing themselves. You know, they promenade before dinner. They get dressed in their finery and they promenade. Their stores are beautifully displayed. Their cafes are just, you know, visual delight. You know, the way the houses are stacked along, you know, the mountainous things. And then you can go, you know, to northern Italy and you listen to the orchestras, and that's southern Italy. You know, there's just so many different, you know, variations of coastline and types of food, and just so many exciting things to, you know, wherever you look, it's just a visual. And then plus, that's where art's, you know, started. We have
Right.
Michelangelo. We have, you know, Padua. We have all of the artists that came before that helped Michelangelo learn his craft. And it's kind of nice walking that path to see how things began. How do people see things? What inspired them? What made Michelangelo decide to chip at rock?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I've been to the quarry. It's nothing spectacular, although the marble is.
Mm.
You know, the marble that comes out of Italy is just gorgeous. You know, and the architecture there. I mean, there's just so many interesting things in one small place that you could paint for a lifetime there.
Well, maybe we'll see something next year when we talk to you from Italy.
Hopefully I can, you know, well, yeah, it's easier to travel, and I'm working on trying to, you know, put something together where I can go spend, you know, a month or two.
Sounds like you'd have to spend several months with all the...
You know, you grab what you can get and
Right.
you run with it. If it's a moment or a year, you know, you got to make the most of it, because with the opportunity is there, you got to seize it and, you know, and just do the best you can with it. It may not be perfect. I've gotten over the perfectionism. You know, I just go and say, hey, you know, if I'm happy with it, I know other people will be happy. Not everybody might like my work, but that's okay. I like my work.
Well, I am sure that we will find plenty of people
I
at
know
the
other
art
people
fair
like
coming
it.
up soon that will enjoy this work. And we appreciate the time you spent with us, Susan. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.